This land burns gold under the sun, then it cools and turns silver under the moon. Infinite horizons stretch out, from red deserts to emerald rainforests, from rugged cliffs to shimmering reefs. This is Australia, a continent alone in the world. Life here is stubborn, inventive, and relentless. Kangaroos run across arid plains. Wedge-tailed eagles soar above. Platypuses hunt unseen under reflected rivers. Koalas cling to gum trees, while dingoes move in coordinated groups across hot deserts. Each habitat is unique. Flooded wetlands teem with life after summer rains. Tropical rainforests breathe fog and shadow. Coral reefs explode with color beneath the turquoise waves. This is a land of danger, a land of beauty, a land of endless surprises. This is wild Australia. First light spills over the red center. Shadows stretch across the desert floor, and the air, still fresh, trembles with silence. A red kangaroo, Osfranta rufus, raises his head, nostrils flaring. He's the alpha. The crowd stirs around him. Females with young tucked deep into pouches. Young males grazing in the dim light before the sun once again scorches the plains bare. A challenger is approaching. This is nothing unusual. Kangaroos, despite their appearance, can become very aggressive when the need arises. This is one of those moments. The alpha spins, tail planted like a post. Dust swirls between them as they rear up on strong hindquarters. They clash forearms. Each blow echoes in the silence. A cloud of red grit floats in the dawn, melting the air. For minutes, they trade blows. Finally, the younger male falters. The victor rises, panting, and then bounds forward, occupying the open space near the watering hole. The crowd settles. The females graze among the spinifex and salicornia, the delicate dew clinging to the thick stems. Joeys press against their mothers, noses smelling the warmth of the bags. Learning to be careful and to know how to choose the right moment. The alpha moves towards the waterhole. The sun rises higher, its brilliance rippling across the sand. Drinking is rapid, eyes dart, nostrils flare. The desert is merciless. A crack. A shadow stretches across the sand. The alpha stiffens. A young male freezes mid-stride. The ears of the crowd turn. From the ridge, a pack of dingoes prowls, crouching, their bodies low, their snouts alert to the wind. The alpha senses their intentions. He turns, tail firmly planted, looking for escape routes. A dingo emerges from its hiding place, teeth bared, aiming at a young animal at the edge of the mob. Dust rises as the kangaroos move. Powerful hind legs pound the sand. Tails swish for balance. The crowd disperses in a fluid, synchronized wave. The alpha leaps forward, muscles tense. He looks back. A young animal stumbles, its tail whipping like a rudder, but instinct drives it forward. The dingo lunges again, testing the escape route. They only exert themselves in quick bursts, unsustained persecution. The alpha guides them toward a rocky rise. Obstacles slow the predator. Momentum favors the kangaroos. The dingo pauses, assessing. His energy is precious under this relentless sun. The mob takes refuge among the scattered rocks. They regroup, hearts racing. The alpha raises his head, ears forward. The threat is gone. For now. The hours pass. The afternoon descends. The herd moves slowly through the desert, settling near the scarce shade. The females graze cautiously, their young huddled close behind. The alpha male sits briefly, observing with his eyes and flicking his ears. His muscles and energy are exhausted, but his vigilance never ceases. And just like that, night falls. A cooler silence covers the red center. The mob sleeps in scattered groups, their senses alert and their bodies ready to react instantly. The desert predators still prowl, but tonight the alpha's vigilance and hard-won experience have preserved his family. The red center is tough, the heat burns, water is scarce. Every shadow could hide a danger. Still, the kangaroos hold on. In a matter of hours, another day dawns. The sun sets over the red center. The desert glows with the heat. Here, water is not just a resource, it is life itself, and animals often risk death to get there. A water well shines like a mirror, precious, fleeting. Waves of birds descend. Mandarin finches, Taeniopygia guttata, chatter and flit from branch to branch. Budgerigars, Melopsittacus undulatus, approach like green and gold ribbons. Cockatoos, Cakatua sanguinea, chatter and push each other, pecking at the shore. Each bird drinks, dives, and quickly returns. Meanwhile, they nervously and alertly observe their surroundings. Their survival depends on speed and the sharpness of their senses. A finch wanders too close to the bank, too careless because of its thirst. Beneath the dusty bank, a parenti lizard, Varanus giganteus, lies in perfect stillness. Its long, forked tongue stirs the air in search of movement. Sunlight bounces off their scales and blends with the sand. One false step, one flutter. The parenti tenses, its muscles taut like a spring. A lightning strike. A cloud of dust explodes into a tiny puff. The small bird disappears. The water waves settle. The flock jolts in the air, regrouping, transforming into a tense, shifting mass. Every movement is calculated. Each bird watches, each eye alert. Another shudder. A corella jumps too close, swishing its tail, alerting the others. The parenti remains patient. Above, the shadow arches. The bold eagle, Aquila audax, rides a thermal, gliding high over the watering hole. Wings spread, catching the rising heat, she squinted. She's been circling, watching, waiting. The movement below draws her. She watches as the herds move. She waits. A sudden drop in the herd. A bird miscalculates, moving away from the safety of numbers. The eagle folds its wings and falls. Claws cut through the air. Feathers scatter like confetti and dust rises from the shore. Contact. It was all over before the finch could react. That's enough for today. The eagle retreats with its prey hanging limply from its iron talons. On the other bank, another wave of zebra finches lands. They move in sync, fast, like arrows, eating in nervous bursts. The parakeets follow, larger and more confident. The corellas move and peck seeds on the bank. Every second counts. Above, another eagle circles, its shadow rippling across the ground. The flock instinctively tightens. Panic spreads through the air like static. Wings clash, a high-pitched cry. A finch falls from the sky, hitting the dust with a soft thud. Parenti moves. Half buried in the sand, he moves his tongue, tasting the air, reading the vibration and the smell. The fallen bird lies still, a blink, then another, a sudden stab, and the parenti claims it. The corpse disappears in a cloud of sand and feathers. Around them, the herds burst, and a cloud of panic rises into heat. Water is life here. It also invites death. Time passes. The sun rises. The dust spirals upwards. The parenti huddles in the shade, watching the ripples calm. The watering hole quiets. Heat shimmers on the surface. Around him, the air vibrates with faint pulses. The finches move in waves, throbbing, alive. A soft trill is heard. The first group takes off, followed by another, and another one, a cascade of movement. They scatter like dust, then gather in a living ribbon across the sky, thousands of wings beating in unison. They head toward the spinifex plains, chasing the faint promise of seeds hidden among the stems. Below, the parenti watches them leave. The eagle doesn't follow them. It knows the small birds will vanish into the mist, unreachable, protected by the sheer number and the chaos of movement. The flock flies low over the undergrowth, descending and ascending in a fluid rhythm. Their patterns are not random. Each turn protects the weaker birds from the wind, of the hawks, due to exhaustion. They follow an invisible map memorized from generation to generation, from watering holes to feeding grounds, from danger to safety, from thirst to rest. At midday, they perch among the dry grass. The air is filled with chatter. They are joined by parakeets. Brilliant flashes of green and gold against the red earth. They feed quickly, nibbling at tiny seeds, skipping through the dust. Every few seconds, one bird takes off, then another, in a chain reaction of vigilance that never stops. A single shadow passes overhead. Instantly, the ground empties. The flock erupts, a buzz of color, a roar of feathers. Then it fades into the glow. Silence returns, thick and hot, but silence is never permanent. Within moments, the first wary finch returns, wings quivering. Every trip to the water, every meal is a gamble against heat, hunger, and fear, yet they keep coming, drawn by necessity. This pattern will continue until the rains change. When the monsoon clouds move south, the desert blooms. The spinifex turns green, the seeds burst open, and water collects in the shallow cavities. Then the finches breed, fast, frantic, unstoppable. They build their nests under the thorny shade of acacia trees, weaving dried grasses together to form small forts. Pairs call to each other constantly, trilling in short, cheerful phrases that fill the early morning air. The female lays her small, white and fragile eggs hidden deep within the woven walls. The male guards, singing from a nearby branch. In just 2 weeks, the chicks hatch, blind and shivering. Both parents feed them incessantly, flying back and forth, catching insects and collecting seeds. The heat increases, food becomes scarce, and the pace continues. Some chicks survive, others don't. But enough to keep the sky full. When the dry season returns, the flocks gather again, drawn to the last safe watering holes, the same ones their ancestors found generations ago. They travel immense distances, guided only by memory. Parakeets follow a similar path. When drought hits, they move in huge, bright flocks that seem to spread across the desert like a spring tide. Some years they disappear completely, moving north to wetter grasslands. Other years they fill the sky from horizon to horizon. Each journey feeds another. Finches and parakeets scatter the seeds they eat, carrying life between oases and between seasons. Their passage shapes the desert as surely as wind and rain. Soon the breeding season will end. The nests will be emptied. The grasses will die and turn into brittle gold. Once again the birds will gather, driven by thirst. They will return to this same watering hole, where parenti awaits, where the eagle circles. Meanwhile, another day keeps running. The desert sun beats down relentlessly on the ochre plains. The heat shines, rolling in waves that blur the horizon. Noon has arrived. Under the dazzling sky, life moves forward cautiously, measured against survival. A shadow appears above. Under the intense midday sun, the bold eagle, Aquila audax, glides high over the arid expanse. Its shadow glides across the plain, passing over groups of kangaroos, flocks of finches, and the glimmer of a solitary waterhole. Every move below is a sign, a change of pace, a flash of vulnerability. It glides, conserving its strength, patiently circling. Taking advantage of the thermal currents, Australia's largest bird of prey circles effortlessly. With its enormous wings spread almost 2.7 meters from tip to tip, its talons flex once, probing the air. Below, the mob of kangaroos grazes, scattered across the plain. Among them, a 10-month-old kangaroo, who hasn't yet reached his feet, eats right in his mother's shadow. His fur is soft and pale, and his belly is still velvety. He's old enough to wander, but not yet wise enough to fear the sky. He breaks formation. The eagle turns. A single movement of its wings. Below, the alpha male raises his head, feeling the subtle change in the air, a shadow moving across the dust. But the threat is too distant, too high. The herd continues grazing. Without warning, it folds its wings. She falls from the sky with a lethal silence. The air screams beyond their feathers. The immersion is devastatingly fast. Dust swirls as the crowd erupts. Mothers call, joeys jump. Tails move through clouds of sand. The eagle's talons extend, curved and lethal, designed to pierce skin and tendon. The kangaroo flees too late. A flash of movement, a cry muffled by the wind, and they both disappear behind a low dune. For a long moment, the desert holds its breath. Then the eagle rises again, dragging the small, limp figure with it. The weight is barely within its capacity. She fights, flapping widely. Raise the body only 1 or 2 meters above the ground. Then it perches behind a rock to feed. A bold eagle can lift prey weighing up to 6 kilograms, but anything heavier must be dragged or dismembered. The kangaroo weighed at most about 4 kilograms, light enough to handle, heavy enough to matter. Now he eats methodically. Every tear of flesh sustains her for another day of heat and hunger. The feathers are scattered by the wind. The flies gather together. The desert quickly recovers what it gives. Above her, the thermal currents shift again, and a second shadow crosses the plain. Her mate. Smaller, sleeker, with darker plumage, he circles lower, watching her feed. Bold eagles mate for life, returning to the same nesting grounds year after year. Together they maintain territories that can extend up to 30 square kilometers. They fiercely defend it from intruders. As the light softens, the duo heads to their old nest, carved into a skeletal eucalyptus tree high above a dry stream bed. They call once, a low, raspy duet echoing off the cliffs. As summer fades, the heat eases only slightly. Storms suddenly erupt and scatter across the horizon. Rain means abundance. The corpses are dragged down the ravines, the prey ventures further. With the coolness that follows, the eagle's behavior changes. Their calls become more frequent, their displays more elaborate. The male takes flight, describing steep arcs with his wings tightly folded, rising abruptly with a screech that pierces the sky. She responds from below, mimicking her dive. This is a reaffirmation of the bond that keeps them alive. They begin to rebuild the nest. Small firewood, bark, fresh leaves, layer upon layer. She tests him with her weight, adjusting, arranging, reshaping him. He brings more. When the wind howls, they stick together, perched side by side, silhouetted against the lightning. In late winter, the female settles into the nest. The first egg arrives, pale, mottled, fragile. She guards it fiercely. Its enormous body protects it from both the cold and predators. The male hunts tirelessly. He brings food, perches briefly, and then takes off again into the wind, disappearing over the ridges. The weeks drag on. The egg trembles, cracks, and gives way to the fragile life. A single chick emerges, blind pale, shaking. The mother leans towards her. Its vast shadow dwarfs the newborn. Its beak tears at the first offering, feeding it gently. The days lengthen. The chick grows. Its down thickens. Its eyes open, sharp and golden like its parents'. Soon it will learn the mechanics of air, the moment, the elevator, the invisible language of thermals. The father constantly circulates nearby, scaring away the crows, snakes, even other eagles. With the arrival of spring, the land is transformed. Watering holes fill briefly. Kangaroos graze abundantly. Finches breed, their songs mingling with the undergrowth. All creatures respond to the season's sudden bounty, and for a time, even predators find abundance. The young eagle spreads its wings for the first time, uncertain, strange, trembling on the edge. The mother observes but does not interfere. A jump, a stumble, a fall. Then suddenly the flight. For days, the chick practices, short glides between trees, clumsy landings, hesitant turns. Soon it has mastered what its parents have perfected. The family hunts together briefly, 3 shadows moving in perfect rhythm across the plains. But the bond won't last forever. When summer returns, the young people will be expelled. Throughout the seasons, the cycle continues. The pair hunts, mates, rebuilds, and defends. Sometimes a year produces no chicks. Sometimes storms destroy the nest, yet they always return to the same ridge, the same branch, the same view of the endless heart of the desert. When one dies, the other remains lonely for months, sometimes years, before accepting a new partner. When drought hits the red center, their dominance expands even further. The female flies farther each day, covering vast distances in search of carrion or the weak and unwary. The male follows her from above, looking for rivals. Then they depend more intensely on each other, one to protect, one to kill. In these lean months, silence reigns. Kangaroos graze cautiously, smaller birds fade into distant oases, and the air itself seems to hold its breath. Eagles adapt, changing their routines, feeding on lizards, carcasses, and whatever the earth offers. When dawn breaks, they climb the thermal currents together. Meanwhile, the sun sets over the red center. The heat of the day begins to diminish, but the desert still radiates warmth. Shadows stretch across the plains. In this quiet world, movement becomes subtle. The alpha female dingo, Canis lupus dingo, emerges from her den, muscles tense beneath her tawny fur and ears twitching with every sound. The day's hunt begins. She pauses, her snout pressed to the ground, the scent drifting across her tongue. Nearby, young wallabies graze cautiously, their ears twitching and tails stiff. The alpha's every step is calculated, every pause deliberate. He silently signals to his pack. They twitch their tails. They tilt their heads. No sound escapes the wilderness as they disperse. Each dingo instinctively assumes its role. A young wallaby strays too close to a low bush. Alpha signals. 2 dingoes silently position themselves, flattening themselves against the ground, ears pricked, snouts brushing the sand. Timing is everything. The wallaby leaps forward, oblivious to the invisible threat. A flash of teeth, a dull thud on the ground. The fight is brief. The pack moves quickly, dragging prey toward the den, maintaining momentum before scavengers or competitors appear. The den lies hidden beneath a tangle of spinifex and stone, a network of shallow tunnels that cool the heat of the day. Inside, the air hums softly with the sound of life. Pups, blind just weeks ago, now stumble and snap at each other, their small bodies wrapped in soft, pale fur. The return of the pack sends a vibration through the den. Noses perk up, little tails twitch. The alpha drops his prey and backs away. Subordinate females feed first, tearing in short, efficient bursts, then carrying the pieces to the mouth of the den. The alpha waits and then moves to feed. Nearby, his larger scarred mate stands guard at the entrance. His role now is one of watch, not chase. He listens intently for crows, lizards that stray too close, and the faint noise of rival dingoes moving through his territory. As the evening cools the desert, the pups emerge, staggering into the fading light. The alpha cleans them, pressing his nose against each wet snout, memorizing their scent. They hunt, feed, and protect. This rhythm is repeated daily during the dry season. The pack's territory stretches for miles, marked by scent and reinforced by patrols. When the rains come, the world is changing. Grass sprouts through the red, cracked soil, and insects swarm. The wallabies thin out but grow faster. The kangaroos move to higher ground, and the scent of abundance permeates the air. For dingoes, the rainy season is both a gift and a challenge. The prey is widely dispersed. The watering holes are multiplying. Now the alpha female and her mate often hunt separately, conserving their strength and teaching the older cubs the rhythm of movement. How to stalk, how to wait, how to read the wind. By late summer, the cubs are almost half-grown, their fur thick and golden. They practice with beetles, about skinks, about slow-winged night birds that hover too close to the ground. The alpha watches, ever present, correcting them with low growls or soft bites. Her mate circles the perimeter, marking scent trails, reinforcing the invisible boundaries that define their territory. When drought returns, scarcity creeps back in. Water wells are shrinking. The smell of death lingers longer in the air. Some pups will leave with the arrival of the next full moon, drawn by the instinct to find their own territory. Others will stay, forming the nucleus of a new generation. The alpha female and her mate will remain together. Dingoes typically mate for life. The seasons change. The den goes from being a nursery to a refuge, from cradle of new life to shelter from the storm. When the desert winds pick up, the alpha female huddles around her young, her muzzle pressed into the fur and her eyes narrowed, but always alert. Her mate lies at the entrance, head erect, listening to the outside world. Every scent tells a story, of prey, of arrival, of renewal. When the rains come again, the cubs are already gone. The alpha's coat is rougher now, her movements slower, but her presence endures. Each new season will test the pack. Each drought will thin its ranks, and each birth will restore what was lost. Despite everything, the rhythm remains unwavering. Silence falls again on the dunes. The moon casts a pale light over the heat-rippled plains. The desert breathes. Life persists. Every creature, from the tiniest hopping mouse to the alpha dingo, plays its part. The cycle continues. The desert night comes slowly. Brushing the red center with cold air, the heat of the day fades, replaced by silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind on the sand. Shadows stretch far and wide. Life changes its rhythm. Night hunters emerge. The world below, hidden beneath the glare of the sun, now pulsates with silent activity. Under the sand, the marsupial mole, Notorictes typhlops, burrows blindly. Its fur gleams with a faint golden sheen, slippery from the friction of the sand. It has no need for sight. Its eyes are vestigial, covered with skin. Its world is defined by vibration and touch. Each push of its front limbs shifts the ground in small, constant waves. The sand closes in, collapsing behind it, sealing its path without a trace. Tiny claws advance, scraping through compacted layers. The creature moves not through tunnels, but through fluid sand, swimming fluidly. Every moving grain carries information. Steps up. The buzzing of insects, the faint pulse of life that stretches across the dune. The mole stops, nostrils flaring. A tremor passes. A group of termites is feeding on buried roots. It tilts its body, recalibrates, and then pounces. It flicks out its tongue with uncanny precision, drawing its prey toward its mouth. The food is small, fleeting, but enough. Every bite counts. A root interrupts its path. The mole hesitates, feeling for the obstruction with its snout. It adjusts its angle, digs around the barrier, and continues. Its progress is slow but relentless, forging invisible paths in the heart of the desert. Above, life stirs in silence. The spiny-tailed gecko, Stropurus ciliaris, emerges from the cool refuge of a rock crevice. Its skin features earthy patterns that mimic the terrain. Its tail bristles. The gecko moves gracefully and delicately with light steps and its body close to the ground. A moth flutters through the air. The wings catch the faint glow of starlight. The gecko freezes. A pause. A movement. Then swift, coiled, precise. The moth disappears between its jaws. The night deepens. A breeze lifts the dust in faint spirals over the dunes. In the distance, a pack of dingoes settles down to rest. The gecko listens, motionless. Over the dunes, a faint whisper announces the passage of another nocturnal hunter, the bubuk owl, Ninox bubuk. It flies low over the undergrowth, wings outstretched and silent. Each flap is controlled, deliberate, conserving energy for the precise moment that matters. His eyes, deep and luminous amber, capture everything. A flash in the grass, the slight movement of a mouse's whiskers, the jerky movement of a gecko's tail. The owl tilts its head slightly, a blur of feathers, a gust of air, then silence. Its talons strike with precision, closing around a hopping mouse that had strayed too far from its burrow. The owl's grip is decisive. It ascends, its wings drawing gentle arcs against the starry void. From above, it surveys the earth again. Pauses on a skeletal branch. His food was firmly grasped. Far below, the marsupial mole continues its incessant digging, oblivious to the drama above. The vibrations faintly reach it. It adjusts its course slightly, sensing the pressure from above. Safety lies deeper. It descends where the sand cools and thickens. The desert never really sleeps. The insects move, their bodies tracing patterns under the bark and rock. The gecko licks its eyes, cleaning the dust, and then returns to the crevice, satiated for the night. Above, the owl eats, its feathers rustling softly, each movement efficient and ritualized. The stars begin to fade. The horizon glows faintly red. Morning is approaching. The bookish owl turns its head to the east, where the light begins to trace fine lines on the dunes. It fluffs up its feathers, wipes its beak against the bark, and takes flight again, soaring toward the nearest ghost gum. There it perches, folding its wings precisely and narrowing its eyes to slits. The gecko retreats under a rock. The air warms rapidly, the sand brightening from gold to pale white. A faint glow begins to rise from the surface, distorting the contours, softening the harsh edges of the world. Below, the marsupial mole burrows deeper into the cool, damp layers. The desert above changes to its diurnal rhythm. Kangaroos move in the distance, their silhouettes moving slowly through the sparse vegetation. Dingoes emerge from their shallow burrows, stretching and wiggling their snouts. Finches begin to congregate around the shrinking watering hole, their chatter contrasting sharply with the increasing buzzing of flies. But beneath these louder lives, the hidden world of the mole continues. It will remain underground during the day, feeding intermittently, adjusting its burrow network to follow the faint, musty scent that lingers near the roots. Occasionally, it will emerge just long enough to refresh its orientation and then disappear back beneath the surface. It leaves no trace. In the coming months, as the heat intensifies and the sand hardens, the mole will retreat further underground, conserving energy and slowing its heart rate. When the brief, violent rains finally arrive, the desert will change overnight. The surface will burst into green shoots. The insects will multiply. Then, and only then, will the mole return to the surface. The gecko will also adapt. In the wetter months, it hunts more freely, stalking moths that emerge from the soil and bark. In the drier season, it remains still, conserving moisture, waiting for the cooler nights to hunt. Its two eggs, tiny, white and leathery, lie hidden under the sand or hidden under the bark. When the young are born, they move instantly like miniature replicas of their parents, already prepared to survive in a world that offers no second chances. Up high, the owl's life also adapts to the seasons. In spring, their songs echo softly in the open forest, a duet between lifelong friends. They return to the same hole every year, There they lay their eggs and raise their chicks in the quiet shade of the eucalyptus treetops. The parents take turns hunting. One stays near the nest while the other roams the dunes in search of insects, rodents, or the occasional unsuspecting lizard. At dawn, the desert is calm. The mole sleeps deep in its tunnels. The gecko curls up in the shade and its heart rate slows. The owl perches silently, its feathers ruffled in the growing heat. The night world has withdrawn, but beneath the sand the desert still breathes. The days go by like this, then weeks, then months. The seasons change, the landscape changes. Monsoon rains have arrived in the Northern Territory. The water spreads across the plains, flooded streams, filling depressions. Kakadu's dry scrubland into a vast wetland. The heat weighs heavily, mixed with moisture. The air vibrates with life. Here, survival is dictated by water. Each movement is measured in relation to its rising tide. Beneath the reflected surface, a saltwater crocodile, Crocodilus porosus, lies almost invisible. Only its eyes and nostrils interrupt the waterline. Its scales gleam faintly in the filtered light. Its body is motionless but alert to any vibration. Around it, the wetland breathes, Kakadu's summer flood. The magpies, Anseranas semipalmata, float over the shallow waters, their high-pitched calls in the thick air and the flash of their wings as they circle down to feed among the reeds and lilies. They stir up mud, seeds and insects, unaware that beneath them, muscle and instinct are waiting. A goose leans too far forward, seeking the submerged grass. The water folds inward and explodes outward. The shock is instantaneous, violent, and disappears just as quickly. Ripples spread, echoing the brief collapse of equilibrium. Those who survive come closer, nervously honking the horn. Their formation is tightening in response to a danger as old as the earth itself. Above them, a jabiru, Iphippyrhynchus asiaticus, watches from a narrow ridge of mud, its beak catching the flash of light, its reflection distorted on the water's surface. The jabiru advances, wading with perfect precision. A fish that darts, a flash of silver. The beak attacks with surgical precision. The barramundi, Lates calcarifa, disperse, gliding among reeds and roots, their scales glittering like tiny storms of light. Freshwater turtles, Chelodina rugosa, swim through the canals. Their shells skim the mud as they move toward higher ground. They perceive the change in pressure in the water. Subtle signs of the flood continue to increase and climb onto fallen logs to sunbathe before the next wave. By mid-season, the floodplain is transformed. The once dry grasslands have dissolved into a shifting world of islands and pools of water, where every surface comes alive with reflections and movement. Crocodiles move from one pool to another. Jabiros stalk through flooded meadows, looking for stranded fish in the new shallow waters. Whistling ducks gather in flocks that glitter in the sky, settling in the places recently conquered by the flood. Magpies mate. The males survey their feeding grounds while the females prepare their nests among the floating vegetation. The air hums with the sounds of reproduction and renewal. Jabiru birds begin building their nests high in paperbark trees using branches collected from the edges of the floodplain. Both parents work together, feeding each other between flights. Around them, crocodiles patrol the submerged margins. They are attracted by the abundance of fish that the rising water carries. The barramundi, now at their most active stage, begin their own reproductive process, gathering in deeper channels where salt and fresh water mix. The eggs are dispersed by the currents, carried by the currents that will carry them out to sea. Weeks go by. The sky changes. Clouds no longer form with the same force. The rains become erratic. The wetlands begin their slow contraction. The water recedes into deeper channels, exposing marshes littered with shells, roots, and the traces of vanished tides. Geese and ducks gather around the remaining pools, feeding frantically before their migration. Jabiru chicks stretch their growing wings. Turtles dig shallow trenches in the soft mud to lay their eggs, sealing them beneath warm soil that will soon dry and crack. The crocodile remains there, adapting without visible effort. As the floodwaters recede, they retreat to shaded channels, conserving energy for the leaner months ahead. He eats less and moves only when necessary. At the end of the dry season, the landscape is almost unrecognizable. What was once a world of reflection and depth now lies discolored and cracked under the weight of the heat. The mud shrinks, forming hardened mosaics. The lilies crumble, turning to dust. The geese have migrated north. Their songs have been replaced by the cries of distant herons hunting in ever-shrinking pools. The jabiros remain. Their young have fledged and are able to forage on their own. Fish crowd the ever-shrinking watering holes pursued by crocodiles. Turtles burrow deeper into the mud and go into hibernation to survive the heat. Dust devils twist across the dry plains. Dingoes skirt the last water sources, searching for fish bones and the remains of birds too weak to fly. The crocodile endures, half buried in the liquid shadow, conserving every last ounce of energy. Above, the first storm clouds begin to form on the horizon. High, dark, electric, the first rains are violent. They break the stillness of the dryness, transforming dust into mud in an instant. Water rushes through channels that had remained silent for months. The crocodile rises, its eyes flashing, its body racing forward in the returning current. Magpie geese return in large flocks. Jabiru reclaim the trees where they nest. The barramundi return upriver. Turtles emerge from their slumber. The wetland awakens again. Meanwhile, on the Kimberley Plateaus, the scene is completely different. The sun rises low over steep cliffs and deep gorges. Shadows spread across the ochre stone, catching dust and early light. The heat is intense. Press against the rock walls. Bake the cracks where life persists. On narrow ledges, a short-eared rock wallaby, Petrogale brachiotis, leaps with unerring balance. The young cling tightly to their mothers, eyes wide open, absorbing the landscape that will shape their lives. Below, the gorges breathe with shadows. The olive python, Lyasis olivaceus, slips silently under rocks. His tongue tastes the heat-laden air and the scent of prey. High above, a wedge-tailed eagle circles, its massive wings catching the rising thermals, its eyes scanning the maze of cliffs for movement. A flash of fur, a shifting stone, a moment of vulnerability. Every life on these cliffs exists on a razor's edge. The frill-necked lizard, Chlamydosaurus kingi, basks on a sun-warmed slab, its scales gleaming like bronze. As a shadow passes, its frilled neck flares out in a flash of orange and blue. It's a warning, a boast, a declaration of defiance in a land dominated by predators. The screen disappears as quickly as it appeared. The lizard blends into the shadow, merging with the stone. Above, the eagle moves in slow spirals, capturing the subtle changes in the air. Below, the wallabies move again. As the dry season deepens, the Kimberley gorges harden. Watering holes are reduced to tranquil mineral pools surrounded by cracked mud. At dawn, the wallabies come down to drink, their muscles tense from exposure. The olive python waits nearby, not for them, but for something smaller, something it can safely catch. A flock of finches lands briefly near the shallow water. The wings flicker like sparks as they skim the surface in search of insects. The snake remains motionless, its head slightly raised above the mud, its tongue moving rhythmically. A finch moves away from the group, attracted by a flash of light. The attack is almost silent. A ripple in the water and the bird disappears. The remaining flock emerges in a burst of noise and dust. The python coils again beneath the overhang, its jaws working methodically, patiently and efficiently. Above, the wallabies finish drinking, their ears twitching at the fading relaxation. By midday, the heat whips up the cliffs, and the air vibrates with the scent of spinifex drifting up from the plains. The wavy-necked lizards move restlessly between sun and shade. In this way, they regulate the temperature. Wallabies take refuge in the shade of rocks, where the radiant heat protects them from the glare. The eagle rides the thermal currents. When storms arrive, the earth convulses. Lightning cleaves the sky, setting the dry grass ablaze and spreading flames across the valleys. The smoke rises upwards, drawing insects and birds in a brief and chaotic abundance. Wave-necked lizards flatten themselves against the rocks as the heat increases around them, while wallabies climb higher, driven by instinct and the smoke. The fires burn quickly, clearing old growth and preparing the ground for rain. Within weeks, green shoots sprout from the blackened stone. The cliffs vibrate with life again. The days go by, weeks, months. The first rains fall in thick sheets. The water slides down the gorges, turning the dry ledges into waterfalls. Wallabies descend through the mist, grazing on the tender vegetation. Olive-backed pythons slither from their shelters to reformed pools where frogs and small birds gather. Wave-necked lizards emerge to feed on the wave of insects that follows the rain. At the end of the dry season, The water retreats back to secret shady areas. Wallabies feed on sparse grass before the drought sets in. Wave-necked lizards pause, conserving energy under the rock. The python retreats to its crevice, resting silently. The fires will return. They always do. Each station feeds the next. As night falls, the heat dissipates. Crickets buzz in the ravines. Wallabies rest under the eaves, their bodies pressed together, their ears twitching at the slightest sound. Wavy-necked lizards wedge themselves into the crevices, motionless as stones. The python lies coiled in the cool shade. The earth never really sleeps. The stars shine on the wet rock. The throats hold their breath. Somewhere in the darkness, a kangaroo wakes up. A python moves. A moth flutters near the resting figure of a lizard. Meanwhile, the Mary River meanders through southeast Queensland in the shade of imposing eucalyptus and paperbark trees. The mist rises from the surface in the cool dawn, ascending in slow, translucent ribbons. Under that mirror of light, the water holds its breath. A platypus, Ornithorhynchus anatinus, breaks the surface, scattering droplets like glass beads before disappearing into the silent darkness below. Its muscles tense beneath its fur as it glides through roots and slime. Underwater, you don't guide yourself by sight, but from the faint electric tremors of a hidden dam. A crayfish moves, a wag of the tail, a quick swipe of the bill. The current softens again. In a deeper bend of the river, a lungfish, Neoceratodus forsteri, drifts in a beam of filtered light. Its gills pulse, then it rises, its lips breaking the surface with a soft puff of air before sinking back into stillness. It is both fish and relic. Along the shore, a female platypus emerges near her burrow. Beneath her lies a chamber of soft soil and roots where the eggs rest beneath her tucked tail. Every ripple she creates is measured. A beam of sunlight pierces the canopy, striking her back as she dives once more. At noon, the forest hums. Insects shine on the skin of the water. A kingfisher floats, flapping its wings in a cloud of turquoise light, then swoops down with a snapping sound that startles the minnows into a silvery panic. Beneath them, the lungfish floats, unperturbed. Its thick scales absorb the filtered glare. It moves only when necessary, exhaling bubbles that rise like the slow ticking of a clock. From the dense edge of the rainforest, a cassowary casuarius wades into the shallows. Its hooves gleam in the sun, its throat vibrates with faint, rumbling calls. It feeds on fallen fruit, swallowing it whole and then strides forward. In doing so, it disperses the leaf litter that moves downstream. The seeds sink into the soft mud and are carried to new soil. As the afternoon heat increases, shadows gather beneath the roots. The platypuses retreat to their burrows, conserving energy. Only the lungfish remains visible, slow and suspended in the dappled light. When the storm breaks, the land is transformed. Lightning fractures the horizon. The rain falls fiercely and uninterruptedly. The water darkens, rising rapidly over the banks. The platypus rides the currents with ease, shedding torrents from its dense fur as it hunts among the swirling mud. The lungfish stirs, buoyed by the warm, oxygen-poor floodwaters. He gets up again and again to breathe. The cassowary climbs the slope, its feathers slicked by the rain, its heavy footsteps rolling the fruit into the river. When the rains subside, the valley exhales steam. The water level stabilizes. Frogs sing from the flooded roots. The platypuses re-emerge. The lungfish stays near submerged branches. With its fins gently waving, it feeds on snails washed up by the current. The cassowary returns to feed on the fruits revived by the downpour. During the rainy months, abundance reigns. Crayfish multiply, insect larvae thrive, and the riverbank teems with life. The platypus hunts almost continuously. The lungfish spawns in shallow, still waters, protecting its eggs among the reeds until the young are released. Meanwhile, the cassowary's droppings scatter seeds across the valley floor, ensuring the next generation of fruit trees that will feed it in turn. As the dry season returns, the river contracts into deep, cold areas. The water slows down. The lungfish burrows into the mud, slowing its heart rate and enclosing itself in a cocoon of stillness. The platypus retreats to shady pools, hunting at dawn and dusk when insects are most active. The cassowary retreats to the forest, following the last fruiting palm trees. Life folds inwards, conserving strength. At dusk, the fog gathers again. The platypuses emerge briefly. The lungfish comes up for air once and then disappears into the darkness. The cassowary vanishes among the trees. The forest settles into its nocturnal rhythm, owls calling, bats skimming the water, frogs harmonizing in an ascending chorus. The river contains them all. Beside him, the forest floor is a mosaic of shadows and dappled sunlight. The heat shines on the leaves, the fallen bark curls, slowly decomposing, hiding tunnels and nests. Amidst the scent of damp earth and eucalyptus, a short-beaked Echidna tachyglossus aculeatus moves, moving its nose. Like the platypus, this animal is also endemic to this continent. Every vibration guides its search. Beneath the bark, ants and termites move about, oblivious to the threat above. The tongue moves quickly, sticky, precise. It lures its prey from narrow crevices. A single movement and a colony is consumed. The echidna is fragile and armored, solitary but perfectly adapted to endure. Heat presses down from above. The air shimmers. A lace monitor, Varanus varius, drifts through the sunlit undergrowth, its scales glistening. The echidna senses the slight vibration and instantly curls up into a ball of spines. The spines bristle outward. This is its only weapon and its surest defense. The monitor stops, clicking his tongue. Tense minutes pass before he moves on, looking for easier prey. Stillness triumphs where speed would fail. The leaves crunch under the fleeing insects. The echidna raises its snout again, tasting the air thick with resin and dust. A termite mound yields beneath its claws, and its sticky tongue moves swiftly, scooping up its meal. High above, a tawny toad croaks softly from a high branch. Shadows change. The echidna moves away from the exposed ground. The forest teems with life. Branches sway, cicadas buzz, beetles scatter with each cautious step. As midday approaches, sunlight filters through the canopy, splashing the leaf litter with gold. The echidna takes refuge under a shaded bank, pressed against the cool earth. Ants swarm around their claws, oblivious to everything. The tongue moves intermittently, picking up what it can. As the seasons change, the rhythms of the forest change. The rain falls in soft, persistent sheets, darkening the bark and loosening the soil. Beneath the dripping branches, the echidna moves more frequently now, its spines slick with moisture, and the air thick with the smell of mushrooms and rotting leaves. The food is plentiful. Termites and ants are increasing in number. The echidna feeds with renewed urgency, moving its tongue rhythmically, each stroke swift and sure. The pent-up energy will sustain it through the lean months ahead. Nearby, the lace monitor moves through the damp undergrowth. His tongue moves through the humid air, capturing the scent of movement. A small skink freezes in a patch of moss. The monitor attacks with astonishing speed, clamping its jaws in a single decisive motion. The forest returns to stillness. With the arrival of winter, the air cools and the forest's rhythm slows. The echidna retreats to holes under roots and enters periods of torpor. Its body temperature drops, its heart rate slows, and time itself seems to blur. The rain slows. Insects burrow deep into the earth. Occasionally, a mild day awakens the echidna from its rest. It emerges briefly, snout twitching, probing the world. A few bites of ants are enough to restore stillness. With the arrival of spring, the forest awakens. Warmth seeps into the earth, awakening the hidden energy in roots, insects, and mussels. The male echidnas begin to wander. Their trails crisscross and overlap as they follow the pheromones left by the females on their litter. When a receptive female is found, the males form a slow procession behind her. This is known as training. One by one, they follow each other's movements, sometimes for days, until only the strongest remains. Courtship is subtle and methodical. There is no violence. The surviving male circles the female, gently nudging her. Mating occurs silently among ferns and fallen branches. When he's finished, the male leaves. The female continues building her deep, isolated burrow. Inside, she lays a single leathery egg, which she curls up for protection. After 10 days, the egg hatches and a tiny, blind, soft and fragile puggle emerges, presses against the mother's belly. Nutrition from milk secreted through the pores. For weeks he remains within the safety of the burrow. The skin slowly hardens, forming spines. Outside, the forest thickens with moisture. Insects swarm. Monitors rest between hunts, their bellies warmed by the filtered sun. Toads nest in quiet corners of the canopy, their calls low and echoing. The The mother echidna occasionally emerges to feed, but she always quickly returns to the burrow. Puggle's spines begin to develop. She leaves it alone for longer periods, each time sealing the entrance with dirt and debris. The pups will remain hidden until they are strong enough to follow her into the undergrowth. At the end of summer, the forest pulses with energy. The puggle now follows its mother, small and cautious, learning through mimicry, its snout pressed to the ground and the click of its tongue. When the drought returns, the rhythm changes again. Streams shrink to shallow pools, leaves curl in the heat. The echidna digs deeper in search of shelter, foraging in the cooler hours of dawn and dusk. Its thick coat insulates against heat loss and gain. Above, a female koala, Phascolactos cinereus, clings to the fork of a eucalyptus tree, its fur damp from the heat, its movements slow and precise. Its tiny, curious offspring watch it from its pouch as it reaches for a bunch of eucalyptus leaves. The selection is instinctive, soft leaves with low tannin content that provide maximum nutrition with minimum effort. Each bite is slow, deliberate, rhythmic, conserving energy. The kangaroo mimics the movement slightly. Birdsongs drift through the forest, currawongs croak, rosellas chatter, and a koal echoes distantly through the beams of sunlight. The koala raises its head and flares its nostrils. The canopy buzzes with life, beetles tracing the bark, ants weaving invisible trails, wings fluttering overhead. The air becomes thick and electric. A low rumble comes from the horizon. A storm is brewing. The kangaroo stares out, eyes wide open. The first drops fall, sliding over the fur and bark, cooling the air. The koala remains motionless, leaning against the trembling tree as the rain intensifies. The forest transforms in moments. Moisture accumulates, dripping from the leaves to the ground. Beneath the canopy, the earth darkens and small streams form and run toward the nearby river. As the water accumulates, it awakens the life beneath. Platypuses glide through the rising pools, raking the silt with their beaks in search of larvae and crustaceans. Rainwater washes leaf litter and nutrients down. The koala, high above, remains motionless but connected. His stillness allows him to survive. Their diet, in turn, sustains the trees that make up the delicate watershed. The storm rages, the wind shakes the canopy, branches creak, and the rain intensifies. The koala adjusts its posture, gripping the slippery bark with its claws. The kangaroo clings tight, pressing itself against its fur as thunder rumbles overhead. The koala endures the downpour, conserving its strength. The rain cools its body, the leaves soften with moisture, and it feeds again between gusts. Below, the runoff thickens, forming rivulets that feed the swollen streams. When the thunder dies down, the canopy exhales. Fog rises from the soaked earth. Water glistens on the leaves, trickles down the trunks and soaks the roots. The koala moves to a new branch and feeds again. Night falls gently. The koala falls asleep with the baby still pressed against its side. The canopy remains motionless. Below, the ripples fade and the last drops fall from the leaves. Meanwhile, dawn pours gold over the turquoise expanse. This is the Great Barrier Reef. The horizon shines where the sea and sky blur into light. The waves fold and unfold against the shore. Each pulse carries whispers of coral and current, of fish and tides, of worlds that breathe beneath the surface and feed the lands beyond. The ocean exhales, the reef awakens. At dawn, the tide recedes, leaving behind a soft expanse of sand. From the shore, a green turtle, Chelonia midas, emerges, her body glistening and wet against the pale sky. She moves slowly, her fins drawing deliberate arcs on the beach. The sea is at her back, but instinct drives her forward. This journey, repeated for millions of years, has no hesitations. Reaching the high tide line, she stops, nostrils flaring, eyes adjusting to the pale gold of the sunrise. The sand cools rapidly beneath her, but she feels its depth, its softness, its dampness, judging the perfect spot for what will come next. When he finds the perfect spot, he starts digging. The movement is repetitive, mechanical, but deeply intentional. Her hind fins scoop and throw sand at a steady pace. The effort leaves her trembling with exhaustion. When the camera is finally ready, she lowers her tail and releases the clutch. Dozens of smooth, shiny eggs sink into the darkness. He covers them with precision, flattening the mound with pats, hiding the future beneath the sand. The act is complete, the purpose fulfilled. He turns toward the sea once more. The descent is easier. The slope softens and gravity assists. His movements accelerate. The fins push the soft grains that stick to its shell. As she approaches the surf, a wave breaks in front of her, bathing her head and cooling her body. She feels the force of the current, the buoyancy that soothes the pain of the journey. Another wave lifts her up and she glides forward. The ocean swallows her. Beneath the surface, the Great Barrier Reef teems with activity. Morning light filters through the waves, illuminating towers of coral and curtains of drifting plankton. Reef sharks patrol the shallow waters. They glide close to the sand, turning sharply. Small fish disperse only to reunite seconds later in synchronized cohesion. Sharks don't chase every move. They select their moments with mathematical restraint. One darts forward like lightning, jaws snapping around a darting mullet. The attack is clean and efficient. Among the corals, parrotfish graze in bright schools. Their beak-like mouths scrape limestone skeletons. They remove algae that would otherwise smother the living reef. Each bite produces faint crunching sounds. Their bodies shimmer in shades of emerald, turquoise, and pink. As they feed, they transform the reef, eroding old coral into sand and keeping surfaces clean for new growth. What they excrete will later be washed back to shore. They will become the same grains that cradle the nests of turtles. Deep within the coral labyrinth, the translucent, tender polyps extend their tentacles into the current. They capture plankton, digest it, and retract it. Individually insignificant, together they build the vast structure that supports thousands of species. Above them, butterfly fish move among branches of staghorn coral. Cleaner wrasses deworm larger fish, fearlessly darting near their gills and eyes. As the months pass, the sea warms, daylight lengthens, the lunar cycle approaches its peak. For hundreds of kilometers, corals prepare. They detect temperature, the light, the precise phase of the moon. When the water is calm and the moon is high, spawning begins. The polyps release eggs and sperm in perfect synchrony. The sea transforms into a shimmering mist of pink, white, and gold. For hours, the water churns with drifting eggs that rise and fall with the tide. Some are eaten by fish or carried away by currents. Others fuse, forming embryos that float as larvae until they find a place to settle and start new coral colonies. For the reef, this single night guarantees continuity. Reef sharks feed more actively in the following days, attracted by the density of prey. Parrotfish graze more boldly, sensing the surge of nutrients. Cleaner wrasses are multiplying, their stations teeming with larger fish seeking attention. Above the surface, gulls and terns zoom through the sky, their high-pitched cries squawking. They dive toward small fish near the surface, slashing their wings in the water before ascending again. Silver sparkles on their beaks are visible from afar. Their calls echo across the water, mingling with the lapping of the waves and the gentle crunch of the sand. Inland, the cry of a bold eagle echoes in the dry air. The green turtle, now resting in deeper waters, floats above the reef to which it will one day return. Around them, plankton glows and sunlight fragments into columns that fade into the depths. It moves slowly, conserving energy thanks to the salt water and the current. For days, it feeds on seagrass meadows, recovering the energy expended on its nesting journey. Beneath it, parrotfish continue to graze. Above, seagulls dive. Reef sharks glide in the shadow of the coral. Rain clouds gather on the horizon. Winds rise over distant forests, pushing storms toward the coast. When it rains, it darkens the sea surface, flattening the light. Rivers swell, carrying soil, leaves, and nutrients from the interior, through eucalyptus forests, through billabongs and wetlands, until they spill into the shallow waters of the reef. This influx of organic matter feeds plankton blooms, which in turn support fish larvae and coral polyps. However, the balance is delicate. Excess sediment clouds the water, blocking out sunlight. For a time, the coral polyps withdraw and feed less. Parrotfish move to the lighter edges of the reef. The sharks adjust their patrols. When the storm passes, clarity returns. Sunlight filters back into the water. The reef lights up, colors revive in vibrant patterns. Polyps open again and feeding resumes. A juvenile reef shark explores the shallows, its movements timid but focused, detects vibrations. There is a school of parrotfish nearby. The shark lunges, swift and precise. The fish scatter, some diving for cover, others paralyzed for a moment before quickly moving away. The shark misses. For an instant, stillness returns. Then the shark tilts its head slightly, slowing its movement. The surrounding stream flows undisturbed. Hidden in the sand, a ray lies buried, its silhouette invisible, its breathing imperceptible. Yet faint pulses of electricity betray it. The shark's ampullae of Lorenzini, tiny gelatinous pores along its snout, shudder as they register the minute signals. Spin once, slowly and deliberately, tracing the voltage patterns. Then, with a single convulsive burst, the shark lunges downward. The sand erupts in a pale cloud as its jaws snap shut around the struggling ray. For an instant, the water churns with the chaos of contact, thrashing tail, churning slime, shafts of light piercing the turbulence. The shark's body flexes and twists to subdue its prey. In seconds, the fight is over. The sand settles, the water clears, and the reef regains its steady rhythm. The shark drifts away. Small scavengers emerge to scavenge what's left. As daylight fades, the reef transforms again. Parrotfish retreat to the crevices of corals. Here they secrete mucus cocoons that hide their scent from predators. Cleaner wrasses disappear into the crevices. Reef sharks descend into deeper waters. The polyps spread out again, feeding in the faint glow of plankton. Above, the moon hangs full. The turtle floats near the surface, its eyes barely breaking the water to breathe. Weeks later, on the same beach where they nested, the sand churns. Under the pressure of their tiny claws, the surface trembles and cracks. One by one, the hatchlings emerge, dark, shiny, and frantic. They scurry toward the faint glow of the ocean light. Every step is a race against time. Ghost crabs dart out of their burrows, seagulls circle, watching. The first hatchlings reach the surf, swept away by a retreating wave. Some disappear instantly into the depths. Others are captured before they hit the water. Some will grow up and return decades later and follow the same path that her mother followed. At the end of summer, the reef slows down. Coral larvae settle, juvenile sharks grow, and parrotfish sculpt the reef surface with patient persistence. The turtle moves away from the coast. It migrates hundreds of kilometers, guided by currents and magnetic fields. Above it, clouds move westward, fueling inland rains that swell rivers again. As the sun sets, the reef glows with its last light. The fish retreat to the shadows of the corals. The polyps feed one last time before folding inwards. The sharks move slowly, conserving energy until dawn. The turtle rests near the surface, its shell weakly reflecting the starlight. When the moon sets and darkness deepens, the sea is calm. That's life here in wild Australia,